Friends, my message tonight is a little bit of a sermon, a little bit of American history, a little bit of civics, all of them hopefully coming together. American Jews are generally anxious when religion and politics seem to mix. The separation of church and state is a principle that we hold dearly. That is why we generally oppose school prayer or the teaching of religious doctrine in schools. But it's really more complicated than it appears. In Article 2, Section 1 of the U.S. Constitution, the president must take an oath every 4 years. And it says, "I do solemnly swear, parentheses, or affirm, that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States." Now, the Constitution does allow the president the choice of swearing, like a religious oath. And in Judaism, a religious oath is you don't break a religious oath, or affirming the oath of office. Swearing is seen as taking your pledge before God. But only one president in American history, Franklin Pierce, chose to affirm his oath. And the reason probably has to do with the fact that after he was elected, but before his inauguration, his son died, and somehow perhaps as an act of doubt about God, he chose to affirm rather than swear the oath. Now, the difference between fact and legend is quite fascinating on this topic. It all starts with George Washington. At his inauguration, the most common account of the event is that after taking his oath, Washington kissed the Bible respectfully, closed his eyes, and in an attitude of devotion said, "What? So help me God." Robert Livingston, who was the official who swore him in, exclaimed, we are told, "It is done." Turning to the people, he shouted, "Long live George Washington, President of the United States," and those gathered shouted the same phrase in return. So you might be wondering, what does this have to do with anything? A lot. There is a debate as to whether or not Washington added the phrase, "So help me God," to his oath. The only contemporary account of Washington's oath is from the French consul at the time, who reported the constitutional oath of Washington with no mention of "So help me God." So the only recorded document of the Constitution, of the swearing in, was no "So help me God." The earliest known source indicating Washington did add "So help me God" is attributed to Washington Irving, age 6 at the time of inauguration, and the first appears 60 years after the event. And at the conclusion, Washington and the others went in procession to St. Paul's Chapel. If you've been down at the area of the World Trade Center, that was the church that didn't fall down. It's an incredible church, and you can go see where Washington was sworn in Lower Manhattan. And there, when they went in, they invoked the blessing of God upon the new government. In 2009, an American historian wrote that there is absolutely no extant contemporary evidence to support the traditional story that George Washington added the phrase "So help me God" to the presidential oath of office at his first inauguration. I'm sure all of us are very aware of this American history. So in fact, this story did not exist until 1854, when Rufus Griswold included it in his book entitled The Republican Court, and where did he get that information? From the 6-year-old Washington Irving. So it's easy to show that before 1854, there are no accounts of Washington saying "So help me God" at the end of the oath. Now, the legend has grown. Here is a newer version of "So help me God" story. Not just that George Washington said it in 1789, but that every president added it to his oath of office. We know that this is problematic, and as it turns out, We have no convincing contemporary evidence that any president said, "So help me God," until 1881, when Chester A. Arthur took the oath of office after the death of James Garfield. William Howard Taft, Warren Harding, Calvin Coolidge, and Franklin Roosevelt said, "So help me God," as has every president since then. But before 1933, we have good evidence that only 4 out of 31 presidents said it. The universal use of "So help me God" is a fabrication. The every president tradition apparently began shortly after World War II, as tension increased between the United States and the godless communists of the Soviet Union. Religion became an important weapon against the Cold War. One of the earliest examples, I'm not done yet, okay? If you didn't study American history, you're going to study the entire history of America tonight. So one of the earliest examples is from Jacob Simpson Peyton, who was the Washington correspondent for the Methodist Christian Advocate. And in a column in January 1948, Peyton wrote, quote, that religious tolerance had been a goal of the dream-driven champions of democracy who had founded the American nation. He says, all presidents representing many branches of the household of faith before entering upon their most solemn duties have placed their hands upon the Bible, pressed their lips to the sacred pages, and have sealed their solemn compact with the words, "So help me God." Myth, legend, fabrication, or as our future president will say, what does he say about the news? Fake news. This is fake news. Really fake news. Now, what are we Jews to make of all this? What are any of us to make of it? The inauguration is a very religious event. There is an invocation, a benediction. Rabbis are regularly asked to participate. The president often invokes the name of God. In 1981, Ronald Reagan made these really wonderful remarks in his inaugural address. And I read his inaugural address. It was a very inspiring document. But this is what he says in his inaugural address of 1981. He said, "I'm told that tens of thousands of prayer meetings are being held on this day, and for that I am deeply grateful. We are a nation under God, and I believe God intended for us to be free. It would be fitting and good, I think, if on each inaugural day in future years, it would be declared a day of prayer." What do you think of that? So here are my thoughts. No president has to make a religious pledge. They can affirm, not swear to God. Yet no president today would dare not say, "So help me God," which is somewhat ironic considering the fact that since the 1950s and 60s, the amount of people who believe in God in the United States has gone down from 98% to, in 2022, 81%. And as we know, even when presidents are not people of faith, presidents have to fake it. So here is my dilemma. I am going to be 69. I'm very proud of it, and retired soon. I will be 72, going on 73 at the next election. I could run for president, and I could win. And I don't think that I'd get many votes in Missouri. Therefore, on January 20th, 2029, I might be standing in front of the nation's capital about to take the oath of office. What should I do? No one is going to question that I believe in God. So I'm not going to be forced to say, "So help me God." As an American Jew, I might let my God in public life anxiety win out. Why should religion have anything to do with an oath of office that many of us would say? There is no religious test in the Constitution. God is not even mentioned in the Constitution. But I think that I would take the oath of office on a nice Hebrew Bible. Not so much because of my own faith, but what I think about what I think that our country needs to affirm every year and at every inauguration. The great historian Jonathan Sarna writes about this when he says, American Jews have always embraced this broader religious character of American people. We came to America not because it was godless. We came to America because religion was to be respected. There is no state religion, thank goodness. But our founders promoted religious observances. America is grounded in no religion in particular, but certain that some kind of religion is necessary for the well-being of all citizens. And our important statesmen have believed that religion, morality, knowledge, intentionally not clear and defined, were necessary for a good government and happiness of all humankind. Leading Americans from Benjamin Franklin, who proposed that non-denominational prayers be recited at the Constitutional Convention, to Dwight Eisenhower, who said, quote, "Our form of government has no sense unless it is founded in a deeply felt religious faith, and I don't care what it is." We American Jews are part of this. From our early history, we did not fight against God and religion, we embraced it. We were overwhelmingly people of faith and piety, who loved America by building synagogues and attending them. We did not have religious anxiety. We affirmed that we are part of this great nation rooted in belief in God, a God who demands decency and goodness and charity and freedom and tolerance. So if I'm to take the oath of office, you will hear me proudly say, "So help me God." So as our new government comes into power, I pray that we as a people take this affirmation seriously, and that all politicians take this idea seriously. Democrat, Republican, independent, I don't care what flavor of politician. We need a lot of faith and humility. We need to humble our leaders. They are not as wise or clever as they think they are. They need divine guidance. They are not messiahs, they are not saints. They need principles that transcend their whims and their desires. They need to imagine that they are truly standing before God and that they will be held accountable. Religion takes our politicians down a notch, and that is very good. Our future depends on it. So help me God. Shabbat Shalom.